Hey, welcome to the Saturday interview session. This is Edwin Overe, your host from edwinovere.com, aka the successful freelance dancer. Here we go, another round of interviews, this time with Tim McDonald. Tim is the founder of iTheatrics. What do? Basically, they help adapt musicals from Broadway and elsewhere to educational settings. We met back in 2009 during a collaboration with Palovalis Dance Theater, Goodspeed Opera House, and the famous and talented lyricist and composer Pasek and Paul. And wow, what a wonderful collaboration. It was James and the Giant Peach. It was on its way to Broadway. A couple things, happened and it never made it. However, the music has still continued on. And less than 2 years ago, I actually was a part of that production, but at my local level here in Milwaukee. You're going to hear some really interesting facts about Tim, and here's some of them I'd love to share with you. When Tim was younger, his mother enrolled him into a diaper derby at one of the state fairs, and that's when Tim discovered that he had love for music, because when he was doing the race, he was pretty much winning it, and then he got sidetracked by hearing a live organ being played by a woman. It captivated his attention, and then that's where he focused all of his attention up to this day in music and movement and theater. He has a daily battle with dyslexia, and I totally understand what he's going through. I have quite a few issues with that, but you don't stop. You keep driving on, and that's what you're going to hear in this story. His message about keep moving. It's going to be challenging, but you keep moving on. In January, Amazon sold out with their first round of textbooks entitled The iTheatric Method. Tim also talked about that, if you're out in this field as a professional performer, such as a singer, actor, or dancer, make sure that you're okay with the fact of it being just a job and that you have to make money from it in order to make a living. A lot of times young artists, they get frustrated and they realize that their love, their craft, their passion is work. You gotta keep working at it and keep reaching, keep connecting, and some people get frustrated because you can't do that. His favorite drink? Cold gin in a glass. I'll tell you more about the name on it. I can't pronounce it. I can't remember what it was. Anyway, thank you so much for taking the time. Make sure you subscribe, leave comments down below, and also forward this video over to others who have been in love with musical theater for years, like I have. For me, it's been since 2009, and I can't think what my life would be without musical theater. And I can't wait for you guys to enjoy this time together. So here we go. When was the first time that, say, you recalled, or even your parents recalled, that you were going to be yourself finding your way, your life into musical theater and everything that goes along with it? So what were some of those early moments that happened?
Well, my mom tells what I think is a very funny story about me, and I was still crawling. So we were at the local county fair, and they had a diaper derby, which is where they line all the babies up, and then they have to run, they crawl to the end, and whoever gets to the end, they win all these great prizes. And I was way in the lead. But then on the other side of the room, there was a woman who started playing the organ, and I stopped and turned and went to the organ and sat and watched her until she stopped playing. So my mom always says from that moment on, she knew that music was going to have something to do with my life. I was too drawn to it.
Oh, got you. And then when you started, like, say, hitting around 5 years old, 10 years old, what were some things that your parents kind of, like, put you in? Whether was it, like, in dance classes and music classes, classical lessons, like, say, in piano or voice?
Yeah, I started by studying piano in the 4th grade. I'm one of 5 kids, and there were 3 requirements from my mom. And one is that we all had to know how to play tennis, because, that's going to help you in society. The second was we all had to learn how to type, and I'm talking about typewriters, not keyboards. Yeah. Literally, everyone on a manual typewriter. And we all had to take piano from 4th grade up until our freshman year in high school, and then you could choose to quit or not. I chose not to quit.
Yeah, wow, that's a long commitment to be learning how to spread your fingers and read notes and play.
Yeah.
Oh, God. And then, so arts was super important in your family. Your mom and dad, were they in music, or were they into entertainment, or did they have, what was their background a little bit?
No, in fact, the arts were not important in my family. Just piano, my mom thought, was a good skill for people to have. My dad was a lumberman, and my mom was like a bookkeeper at a tire store. So, we grew up in a very rural area. The first live theater I saw I was probably in 7th or 8th grade, and it was a local high school production. So, yeah.
Kind of later in life, right? This is the way it is sometimes.
Yeah, much later in life. But boy, once I saw that show, which was The King and I, performed by Shasta High School, I knew that's all I wanted to do.
Yeah, got it.
That was it. Yeah.
And then when you hit like around your high school level, what were some of the things that you found yourself totally drawn to? Obviously, you had to play the piano, but when you were given the choice to do something different with your talents, what was it?
Well, that's when I really discovered, I was doing choir, and I loved choir. I eventually moved into band and playing some instruments, but I really loved doing musical theater. So there was a community theater, and when I turned 13, I auditioned for the production of Pippin and got cast in the chorus and as the understudy of Pippin. And I think I was the understudy of Pippin because I had the same hair as William Catt, who did it on Broadway. I swear. I never played the role. I would have been terrible. And after that, that's all I wanted to do was to tell stories through musicals.
Got it. And then when you were, in every phase of that early childhood, there's always some mentor or someone who really influenced you. So who was that person, if you can recall, or those people who really helped you out?
Yeah, I had a series of people who were really supportive of me. My piano teacher, Mrs. Daly, she was just fantastic. She'd been teaching. She was the principal of the high school when my mom went to high school, which is back in the 40s. Okay, so because
talk about longevity.
Yeah, she had retired, and now all she did was teach piano to kids all day long. So she must have taught, I would say, 1,000 kids how to play the piano in all different capacities. So she was certainly a big influence on my life. My choir teacher, Mrs. Dolores Bowman, also was fantastic with me. And then I had another teacher who was never my teacher, named Jim Sewell. And he was also fantastic because he loved musicals and he could play anything. And he could paint. He was like a complete Renaissance artist kind of guy. So he was really influential too. Got it.
We tend to get, if you're a physical mover, you tend to get injuries, right? As a person who uses their voice, they can, hurt their voice. So what was something that might have happened to you earlier on, or even any portion of your life, where you had an obstacle, let's say a physical obstacle, and then how did you overcome it?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm actually going to switch that up to writing, because now mainly I'm a writer when it comes to theater. I don't perform unless...
unless you have to.
Unless I have to, yeah.
Or somebody gets injured and I got to step in.
Exactly. I leave it to the pros. But for me, the biggest thing I had to overcome is that I am dyslexic. I'm very dyslexic. And this wasn't, I didn't know it until I was in college. Junior college is when they finally got a diagnosis. And so for me then, to be really drawn to writing and telling stories and also being dyslexic is a daily battle. I often think like, why did I choose this? Because it's really hard for me. Some people, it's really, really natural for them. Yeah. The storytelling isn't hard, but the writing it down is always a challenge. My spelling stinks still to this day. I keep trying to learn it, and sometimes I'm better than others, but wow, it's tough. So I deal with that all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I found for myself, because my teacher kept noticing it in college, it didn't register until I remember my older brother talking about it. Now he's deceased, but he had told me his situations with reading. I'm like, man, I find like I'm kind of stuck in the same boat. Or when my wife was like, yeah, when you're reading kids' books to the kids, like it doesn't sound right. It's not flowing. It's choppy. You're adding things that weren't there. And then when I wrote my book, my ebook, I had to do audio to text. It was the only way that I found, and I had to make everything visual, like this is where I need to talk about with bullet points, because if I were to make it in long paragraphs, I would totally get lost. I just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
It's weird.
But you find ways to work around it if you're really determined to do it, like you did.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is great.
Yeah. What has been some of the best things that help you with that? Like as far as what are some of your methods to help you with, say, crafting or even a quick, like when you have to make a one-page bulletin or something to someone, like what do you find helps? For me, it's the visual things.
Yeah, for me, it's just a matter of not being ashamed and not being embarrassed if I spell something wrong or have a typo. That doesn't mean I'm not smart or intelligent or creative. So I have to let that go. But the other thing is that I've been writing a lot with a very well-known author named Jodi Picoult, and Jodi is a New York Times bestselling author. And her big point, which is so valid, is you can't edit a blank page. So it doesn't matter if it sucks or if it's not spelled correctly or if it's full of typos. You can go back and fix that. But you can't unless it's been written down. So it's just a matter of just do it. Just write it down and do it.
Got it.
And let it flow.
Yeah, I mean, like in anything, in any process, the 95% of it is going to be a little bit muddled and unclear, and it's going to have errors. It's that 5% that's presentable, which leads me to the book that you wrote, which is the iTheatrics method, which is a kind of like a textbook, right?
Yeah, it is.
What year did you put that out? Was it like in the last year or 2 years?
Yeah, we just released it in January.
Oh, wow.
So it's a brand new release, and I'm happy to say that it sold out its initial run on Amazon in something like 4 weeks, which was really cool.
Wow. All right. What's inspiring you now as a person, as an artist, as a creator of content? So, what's really moving you? It could be music, it could be a social movement, it could be just some great food.
Yeah, well, great food for sure. I'm really drawn right now to telling stories to remind the world not to repeat history. So I'm working on a brand new musical that's in the earliest phases that I can't announce, but it's based on a novel that tells a very important story, but tells it in a way that it's not heavy-handed.
Yeah.
It tells it from a real point of view, and it's Nazi Germany, and it has to deal with, if your parents were communists, what that meant, if you were a Jew, what that meant, concentration camps, just the horrors of the Nazi regime. It's a fantastic story. It's going to make a great musical, and I'm just really drawn to that. I'm drawn to telling stories that will make the world a better place, that make people think, that make them... Because when people are singing and acting and dancing, people are less susceptible to judge, I think. So you can get messages in there in a way that I think is a little more subtle and less heavy-handed, and maybe reach a broader audience. I don't know. That's my goal. Yeah,
got it. Yeah, I mean, when you're in entertainment, in any form of entertainment, you are really taking people out of their current state and really making them go into this, not necessarily fantasy world, but also a world that really can resonate with the current times. And make them really think deeply about what's going on, not just about, hey, I haven't been able to pay my bill, or relationship with your girlfriend or partner. It's like, think of the bigger issues. If there was something you would love to learn, like say today, and you want to apply it within the next year or two, what would that be?
Oh, wow. Spanish. I'd love to speak another language, and Spanish would be my first choice. And I dabble a bit, and then I get distracted. I understand Spanish better than I can speak it.
Yeah.
But even that's pretty weak. But yeah, I would love to speak Spanish.
You know what? You just got to delegate somebody to be your Spanish translator all the time. You're like, mi amigo, talk over here. You over there. Then you're like, I'm speaking Spanish. This is the best.
Yeah, it's great.
It's a different way. Awesome. Current collaboration that's going on. I know you guys just did a big event. I think it was like in February. What was it? It was what is it? Oh, I wrote it down here. It was the Junior Theater Festival West, which happened in Sacramento recently.
Yeah, so we just finished our 3 different junior theater festivals. One in Atlanta, Georgia, with 6,000 people.
Wow.
We did another one, our first on the West Coast, had just about 2,400 people. And then we did our first in the United Kingdom. And that was it was about 350 people, just our first step in
breaking into that market.
We are.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing writing-wise I have going on is I have a new show called Between the Lines, which is based on the book by Jodi Picoult and her daughter Sammy Van Leer. And I'm writing it with these 2 fantastic up-and-coming songwriters, Kate Anderson and Lisa Samsel.
Yeah.
And it opens in Kansas City at Kansas City Rep on September 15th. So we just cast the show. I just turned in my rewrites yesterday. So I'm really excited about that. Yeah. And then I'm also adapting Hans Christian Andersen for the Frank Loesser estate. So I don't know if you know that show.
No, I don't.
He wrote it for Danny Kaye like in the 50s or the 60s. And it's a great score that's not really been heard because it hasn't really been adapted for the stage yet. So it's a cool project. That's what I'm writing right now. And so I have the songs from this original film, plus any songs that Frank Loesser ever wrote. And he wrote, Guys and Dolls and How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying. He was like a major writer. So being able to just go through all of his songs and pick whatever I want to fit the drama that I'm trying to tell is really fun so far.
Yeah,
so those are the.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say that just off the top of my head as you're describing all this stuff, you talking about dyslexia, like it's making me think about like how you have to really be able to see the big pictures of all these different projects and to be able to make, like, like I have all this stuff in my wall. I have to see big pictures of where things need to be and how it comes down to like time management. You're managing a lot of different projects and delegating different people to help you with these dreams to come to life.
Well, the thing about dyslexics is that we do tend to have the big picture in mind. No, it's true. Like most successful CEOs or artists are dyslexic. And it's because if you overcome your dyslexia, it means that you've learned to think in a different way. And you're you're really good at adapting. Because for me, like one of the ways my dyslexia comes out is I can't tell the difference between 3 and capital E.
Oh, interesting.
But I can because the number 3 wouldn't be between the letter B and D. That would be an E for bed. But if you ask me, is that a 3 or an E, I would go, I don't know. I only know in context. So
yeah.
That's what we do. So I'm not surprised you have pictures. I do the same thing.
Yeah. People think I'm crazy when they come into my bathroom because they see my whole year calendar. They see all my stuff where I need to go, and they're like, well, like this is intense. I'm like, well, that's the way I think. I think in like visual images, and I have to. It's for me. It's just like when I was in the military. Reading a map was incredibly easy because I knew where I needed to go. And the same thing with this. These are like miniature maps for my business, my friendships, my network, all the other stuff.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Super smart. Super smart.
Super smart. Okay, here we go. What's one goal you'd like to accomplish just personally for yourself within a year? You talked about learning Spanish as a second language, but maybe on a professional level.
On a professional level, I'm really excited for this new show, Between the Lines. I want to see it be successful. I want to see it in front of an audience. It's really hard getting a musical out into the world, as you know.
I know.
And there's lots of, it can go wrong a lot of different ways, much more than it can go right. So I'm excited that this one is, we've got a great director, Jeff Calhoun, and that it's got good momentum. Daryl Roth is producing. She's won more awards than pretty much any other producer on the planet. So fingers crossed I won't screw it up with my writing, and we'll put on a great show that people will want to see, and it will move to Broadway. So
woohoo!
Yeah, that would be the dream, is to know that the show is moving to Broadway. I'd love to see that happen.
Speaking of shows, like, say, not going to Broadway, there was when we initially met because of a project through Palobolas and the whole James and the Giant Peach was many years ago. I think it was 2009, 2010. And although it never went there, the life of that show and that musical has continued. I did that show in 2015 here in Milwaukee at First Stage. And
you did?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was the choreographer. And when I told them that I was a part of that project, they couldn't believe it. And I was like, yeah, let me show you photos. And they were like, oh my God. It just goes to show how the life of the material continue on no matter what happens, whether it makes it to the big stage or whether it touches people's lives on a regional level or a community level. And as you know, those two lyricist composers have gone on to do wonderful things like the musical movie La La Land, which is. I was literally, when I was watching that, I was like, oh my God, there they are on stage, like, receiving this massive award.
Yeah.
Were you there in the audience?
No. I was at home cheering on.
Yeah, screaming at the TV, woo!
I was. And we're still, I see them all the time. We're good friends.
Yeah.
And it is great. But, failure doesn't mean you can't succeed. It's just another obstacle you have to climb through. So when we left Goodspeed, the three of us were super bummed and felt like we'd failed or didn't serve the piece correctly, and we set it aside for months. And then I remember I called them and said, let's dust this off, and let's make the best show we can, just the three of us, not worry about any, I wouldn't say gimmicks, but like, what can we do with just the three of us? And we rewrote the show. A lot of it's similar, but a lot of it is different.
Yeah.
I think just, the Palobolas thing was so beautiful, but we would have needed so much more time to really pull it off, and we just didn't have the time.
I know. Yeah, it was nice to see the outcome of what happened at First Stage. It was like, although, because sometimes we can be so influenced by our past actions and what were expectations. And I was like, I don't have a team to do any of that stuff. Abandon all of that. This is what I have. This is what I have with this current talent and cast. This is, let's just run with this. I don't, it's like far behind. You have to be current and present with the situation and the environment.
Yeah.
These next two questions are really for the young audience or the people who are listening who need some professional advice.
Yeah.
Or professional suggestions. Like, what's one advice that you would have for the young performers, the guys and gals who are interested in musical theater, that just need like a really good comment that would help them, or something motivational to help them feel uplifted.
Well, let me start with something that may not be motivational, but I think it'll be very helpful because it's advice that I got that I took very seriously. I was in my 20s. I was directing in San Francisco, and I was a Wunder kid who came in and was directing these musicals and getting all these great reviews. And there was a woman that I cast a lot. She had this phenomenal voice, but she didn't do singing full time. She was a legal secretary. And so I pulled her aside, and we had like pizza one day, and I was like, Jean, why aren't you singing at the Met? You have one of the best contralto voices I've ever heard. And you're so funny, and you're a great actress. Why isn't this what you do for a living? And she said, what, and ruin a great hobby?
Oh, yeah.
And I thought, well, wait a minute. What do you mean by that? She's like, look, I work as a legal secretary from 9 to 5. I leave. I don't care what happens to that office, the rest of that. If I had to make a living on my voice, I would have to take every show that came my way. And now I don't. I choose what I want to do. I choose who I want to work with. So I think my first advice is make sure that if you're out in the field and you want to be, you're performing, acting, and dancing, make sure that it's not something make sure that you're okay with it being a job and making money from it. Because if that's going to be your source of income, that's a whole different set of rules than, you know what, I really love performing, so I'm going to perform, but I'm going to perform on my terms, and I'm not going to worry about the money. I'll do something else.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a whole other beast when you start thinking about business and longevity and connections, not just one-time quick interactions, and then people do really get mentally and physically burnt out when they're like, God, I'm not making ends meet, I'm so stressed out, It's like, is this really what you should be doing then,
Yeah, and then the thing that you love becomes something that you hate. So it's true, so you have to be really careful about that, I think, because also, just make sure that you're willing to risk that joy to make a career. Because you can have a career in anything you want, but there's probably not a lot of things in life that bring you joy. So that's my word of advice to young people. If you can only imagine being a performer and that's all you can think of and that's all you're obsessed with, go do it. But if there's an inkling that you want to be a forensic scientist, I would look into that too.
So if you're at the university level, get 2 degrees.
For sure. Always get 2 degrees. Always get 2 degrees.
I know.
Because the other thing that performing tends to be a thing that's people burn out. So it's something that you can really do in your 20s and your 30s unless you really strike lightning, and then you have something beyond that. But so you really want something else to come back to. And the other thing is that the best performers are well-rounded and well-educated. They know history and poetry and science because that makes them more interesting human beings.
Man, these are all great little points of insight. For the person who's say, like yourself, because you are also a businessman, right? There's no way your iTheatrics would have ever come up from the ground if you didn't have structure, order, administration, delegation, time management. So for the business person who's listening, say for the actor, actress, performer who's been in the field 5-10 years and really wants to kick it up a notch for themselves, what's something as a business advice that you would love to give to them?
I have a budget that is written out.
Yeah.
I love Excel, but you could just do it on, a paper with a pencil, but have a budget for your career and pay yourself first is also really, really important and good advice that I got, because it goes back to the idea of when you get on the airplane, you put the mask on yourself first and then you help others, because if you stop breathing, you're not going to be a help to anyone. It's just common sense. But people will do that. They're like, oh, I started this business, but I've never been paid. No. It's the other way. You get paid first. It could be not as much as you would like or as much as you need to live on, but pay yourself first. And then it's surround yourself with the most wonderful, smartest people you can. You should be the dumbest person in the room, if possible.
This comment that you're bringing up, this last part about finding people surrounding yourself. I just had a dinner 2 days ago in LA with a guy who used to be the chief financial officer of, I think it's called CAA, which is the talent agency, that big one, right?
Yeah.
And I asked him, I said, what are if there were three things that, that every artist should know about as far as a professional level? And he said, one, hire someone that's who's below you that's smarter than you in a field that you're not an expert in. The second one was make sure that you keep track of everything as far as like accounts, where your money's going no matter what. And I forgot what the third one was, but I just, it just goes to show like minds think about these things that you got to hire a talent or, who can help you in fields of work that you have not focused your life or energy in,
Yeah, no, I mean, just the fact that Justin and Benj and I are still great friends and text back and forth and see each other and have drinks and dinner is kind of a miracle given where they are now, So it's so bizarre watching them win all these awards and be on my television set and texting them and being like, you look like a dork right now. And then texting back and like, yeah, well, you're probably, sitting on your couch, so bite me, just that. But it's because, you surround yourself by really great, smart people and they'll do really great, smart things. And that's good for you. It's good for everybody.
Yeah. One thing I tell people, like when I was in LA was because I taught this lecture about what happens next. Like a lot of these young dancers are leaving the universities with college degrees and then have no idea about the professional side of being an artist. Yeah. So I was like, one thing I told them is when you're networking, think of it as meeting people, but meet people organically and meet people who are not necessarily in your field of work, but in other spectrums, whether it's like a lawyer to help with contracts or a stylist who can help you look good, or like just think outside the box when you're reaching out to people organically.
That's great advice.
Tim, here we go. This is the last 7 questions because we're moving so fast. We're like lightning. All right. So the first question is, what is your favorite drink, non-alcoholic or alcoholic? Doesn't matter.
My favorite drink is a Hendrix Martini up dry with olives.
Ooh, I have to take a look. I don't know that one.
It's basically cold gin in a glass.
With an olive.
With an olive.
Where would you love to travel to?
I'm really drawn towards Spain, Barcelona, and then I want to hit Morocco.
Oh, got it. Who's your favorite actor?
Oh, no.
This stumps everyone.
I'm going to go classic, Meryl Streep.
Got it. Are you a cat lover or dog lover?
Dog.
Do you have a dog?
Yeah.
What's his name? Or her name?
Kizzy. Kizzy.
Kizzy. Awesome.
She's 15 and she's deaf. And she's always been deaf. When we rescued her, she was deaf. We didn't know it for a long time until she didn't learn her name. So her actual name, we call her Kizzy, but her real name is...
Like, oh, got it.
Come here. Yeah. Then she knows, you want me. Yeah.
If there was a person that you would love to meet tomorrow, who would it be and why? It's tough.
Yeah, I'd kind of like to sit down with Trump.
Talk to Trump. Trump, what's going on?
I would like to talk to Trump. I would. It would make me feel better, maybe, or a lot worse.
But you can do it through a musical format. Trump, I tell you something.
Yes. Mr. Trump, Mr. Trump.
I know you want to learn Spanish because that would be one of the questions I was going to ask you, but if there was another language other than Spanish, what would it be?
Probably French. Just because it seems so, sexy.
Yeah.
But it's really hard. I've tried, so it's not going to happen.
Okay. And the last thing is, this is the best. What is your favorite dessert?
Oh. Wow, I have to choose one?
Yeah. Or you can pick, let's just say 3 of them.
Okay, so I'm just back from London.
Yeah.
And every time I come back, I'm addicted to sticky toffee pudding. But no one can make it here in the States. I mean, some places you can find it, but it's really rare. So I would just go with sticky toffee pudding.
Oh my God! I'm gonna write this down. Sticky toffee pudding.
Yeah, and it's not really a pudding. It's like a cake that's like half baked and loaded with like caramel, and it's got nuts, and then often will have like dates in it, and then they pour this sauce on. Oh, it's served warm. It's so good.
It's kind of like a chocolate lava cake or something to some extent.
Yeah. It's not really a pudding at all. It's more of a cake.
All right. So Tim, what are some other ways that people can find out about you and what you're doing, like say online? I know there's your website, but if you can just say some of your social media things.
Yeah, I mean, definitely my platform of choice is Facebook, which I think makes me old or weird, but I've never been into Twitter. I just don't, it's too celebrity driven.
Yeah.
Snapchat I keep personal so that I have something to myself. Yeah. And so it's really Facebook. So the best thing is to, friend me on Facebook. People can email me anytime they want, Tim at iTheatrics.com. If you really want to speak to me. If you want a week or 2 or 4 to go by, messenger me on Facebook because I rarely check that. Or you just post something on my wall. But yeah, I'm always happy to chat with people. And so that's the best way to get a hold of me.
Got it. And I know there's one thing that the audience should be aware of, that there are 2 big important dates that are happening in 2018 in January and February. There's the iTheatrics Junior Theater Festival in Atlanta happening in January 10th through the 12th of 2018, and the second one is going to be the Junior Theater Festival West in Sacramento, February 9th through the 11th, 2018. Again, all this stuff is important because then people can start looking in advance, right? As we all know with businesses, you have to look forward. You just can't look within the next 3 months. You have to look for a year out. So.
They could definitely check out the textbook if you're doing musicals. If you're working in musical theater education, it's available on Amazon. It's the iTheatrics method. And if anyone is in the Kansas City area, September 15th at Kansas City Rep, we open Between the Lines. It's a brand new musical, so come check it out. I'll be there most of the entire time that we're working on it, like we were in Goodspeed. So come buy tickets, come see it, come say hi.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Tim. Hey everyone, welcome. This is Edwin Olvera from edwinolvera.com, aka the Successful Freelance Dancer. Saturday interview session. Woohoo! Here we go. We have Christopher Harrison, the founder and president of Anti-Gravity Inc., the father of aerial yoga, fitness expert, director, choreographer, and Broadway aerial designer. Now, I just want to say big thanks to Kyle Ozier for getting me connected with Christopher. It's I'm so happy to have this opportunity, so honored to interview a gentleman who's not only a creative genius, but also one heck of an entrepreneur, and what he's done with his company, his brand, is something to take a look into for those of you who are young artists, performers, dancers, or creative people who want to go out and see what you can do with your talents, and not just not just entertain people, but actually help and heal people with your crafts. And this gentleman has done a wonderful job. So here's some really interesting facts or pointers that came up during our interview session. When he was younger, Christopher was really inspired by Gene Kelly and Fred Astaire. He has a minor degree in kinesiology, so he really truly understands the body and from inside and out. When he was younger, he blew at his knee during the America's first cheerleading competition on television. And he's inspired by social causes and a need to make sure that not for us just to create art and beauty, but to also say something meaningful. In over 25 years, Anti-Gravity has had an impeccable history and not having a single injury which was caused by accident base. This is due to their motto of learning, which is teaching technique incrementally. Anti-Gravity began in 1991 in NYC as a confederacy of gymnastic athletes who yearned to continue their love of the flip after competitive years. Assembled by world-class gymnastic specialist and Broadway dancer Christopher Harrison, his style merged athletic power with creativity of dance. Together, Team Anti-Gravity became America's pioneer of contemporary acrobatics and aerial arts. Along the path of his passion, Christopher made numerous discoveries about the body and the mind, which he compiled into methodology and philosophy. His health and wellness creations, which emerged from his company's warm-up, are known as anti-gravity fitness techniques. Now considered a leader in the global expansion of the field of movement and an expert in the field of fitness, Harrison's groundbreaking creations and kinetic inventions have inspired health and happiness through innovative performance and exercise technique around the world. Some of his clients who have used his anti-gravity fitness are celebrities such as Pink, Britney Spears, Gwyneth Paltrow, Richard Branson, Madonna, Katie Couric, Natalie Portman, Dan Brown,